What's going on YouTube? It's Snowflarky here, and I am here to talk today about skill drain and to showcase the current version of one of my favorite decks of all time historically, Skill Drain Beatdown. Now, for a little context about me as a duelist, I played Yu-Gi-Oh! When the game first came out as a kid, and I played it mostly through 2007. You know, once I was getting close to high school, I fell out of it for a bit and then re-picked up the game back in college. Got into it again, and when I got into it in college and was first, trying to make better decks so I could go play at locals and whatnot, one of the first cards I went all in on were normal monsters, and that turned me on to skill drain. And then, of course, after normal monsters, I went full in on just a skill drain stun beatdown deck. Always a card I've been a huge fan of, and I've always enjoyed kind of stun beat down decks like that. Um, I think it's really fun to just summon a huge attack power monster from your hand for free as a normal summon. And so that naturally made me fall in love with Skill Drain, and I played it as much as I could while Skill Drain is at 3. And I've always been sad that Skill Drain has been limited. Perfectly understandable from a game health standpoint, but it did make me miss out on a favorite deck of mine. So, with some new support that has come out recently, I've tossed my hat back in with this deck to be able to play it, for casual duel night. And so I'm very excited to be able to talk about Skill Drain Beatdown. Starting off in our main deck, we are going to be playing 3 copies of Beast King Barbaros. This is the Skill Drain deck staple. Beast King Barbaros is an 8-star monster with 3,000 attack that has an effect that says you can normal summon or set this card without tributing, and if you do, its original attack becomes 1,900. So the way this works with a card like Skill Drain is that when Skill Drain is up on the field, you'll normal summon Beast King Barbaros. It'll normal summon as a 19 attack monster, and then Skill Drain will negate its effects while it's on the field, boosting it back to its original 3,000 attack. So essentially, you just normal summon a 3,000 attack monster for free. And in this deck, we play lots of stun strategies to make it hard for decks to summon a lot of monsters. So when you cut lots of summoning out of the game, and limit the amount of summons that a player can have. 3,000 attack is usually pretty much as good as it gets. So very powerful card to have. We also like Beast King Barbaros because when you don't have Skill Drain active, it's the least punishing. Its attack only goes down to 1,900, which is solid for just a normal summon monster. So we definitely like Beast King Barbaros. Next up for the monster lineup, I am playing 3 copies of Fusilier Dragon, the dual mode beast. This is one of the next best skill drain beaters. You can run Knight Express Knight in this slot because with skill drain it will be 3,000 attack, but without skill drain that one is only 0 attack, so it's a little bit riskier. But Fusilier Dragon, 2,800 attack, it's only 200 less than Barbaros. Of course, this card can be normal summoned or set without tribute, and if you do, its original attack and defense on the field becomes half. So 1,400 attack, 1,000 defense, not as bad as 0. And for 200, I like the trade-off. Also, I just like this card more. It's a cool-looking card. It's like a big dragon tank thing. Pretty awesome. 2,800, it's pretty good. It's a machine, which is different from a beast warrior. Pretty important later on in the deck profile. But we're glad to have Fusilier Dragon on the team. And last up for our monster count, we are playing 2 copies of Segmental Dragon. This came out in one of the Cyber starter decks. It's a 2,600 attack 7-star monster. You can normal summon or set this card without tributing, and if you do, its original attack and defense becomes half. That would be 1,300 attack, 1,200 defense. And if this normal summon card is on the field, you can quick effect destroy this face-up card, and if you do, destroy all monsters in the main monster zones with attack less than or equal to this card. So while you can't activate that effect under Skill Drain because destroying it is not a cost, there are other ways that we can activate this effect with another continuous trap card in the deck that helps by temporarily turning off his effect to give him 2,600 attack and then allowing us to go in on it at a later time. So we're very happy to have 2 copies of Segmental Dragon. Also, the Cyberse typing is very useful for some of our Floodgate strategies. And that is it for the monster count. Only 8 monsters. This is a Demise Stun style deck, so having low monster count is super important because you can normally only summon 1 per turn. Next up, getting into our spell lineup, I am playing 1 copy of Card of Demise. This is a Demise Stun style deck. Demise is limited, so we can only run the 1, but we definitely want to run the 1. Normally a board is Barbaros and lots of trap cards. One of them we want them to be Skill Drain, or one of our other cards that are going to maintain Barbaros's attack power. That makes Card of Demise pretty important to have. And, we definitely want to see it. We definitely want to dig through our deck, get those trap cards. So we're playing Card of Demise. Next up, for additional draw power, we are playing Pot of Extravagance. In this stun deck, we do a lot to hinder summoning mechanics. We can't summon a lot, so we can't really build an extra deck board. So that extra deck is better turned into a draw 2 card. We very much like that. Gives you +1 card advantage, digs you deeper in the deck. Of course, we can't use Extravagance and Demise on the same turn, but that's fine. Doesn't overlap too much, and just a risk we got to take with a deck like this. Next up, for consistency, dig deeper in the deck. I'm playing 3 copies of Pot of Duality. We want to use this to find Skill Drain. We want to use this to find Demise if we haven't played Extravagance. Whatever we're looking for, Duality will find it. And in exchange, we can't special summon, but that's okay. Like I said, this is a stun deck where we don't do a lot of that anyway. So, Duality for consistency. Next up, some 1-ups. I'm playing 1 copy of Dimensional Fissure. Just a powerful floodgate that says any monster sent to the graveyard is banished instead. We're not recurring our monsters from the graveyard at all. And a lot of decks that we go up against need monsters in the graveyard, so if we can send them to the banish zone, sometimes that is an auto win condition, and when stun decks like this, you need auto win conditions like that in the right matchups. Next up, this one's a little bit more for fun, the Seal of Ori Calcos. It's a field spell that says all monsters you control gain 500 attack. Once per turn when this card would be destroyed, it is not destroyed, and your opponent cannot attack the monster or monsters on the field with the lowest attack. Pretty cool. You can only activate this card once per tool, and when you do activate it, you destroy all special summon monsters you control. Usually doesn't matter. We're going to only have normal summon monsters, and we can't special summon from the extra deck while Seal of Ori Calcos is alive. Usually not a thing we can do anyway, so I'll definitely get the trade-off. A fun way to play Seal of Ori Calcos, a fan favorite, and the 500 attack boost is pretty nice, end games quicker, and with stun decks you need to end games as quickly as possible before opponents can draw outs. So definitely enjoying Seal of Ori Calcos. And last in our spell lineup, I am playing 1 Called by the Grave. Getting our demises and stuff off is very important, so I don't want to get Ash Blossomed. So I play the 1 Called by the Grave I'm allowed to play. Get rid, negate those hand traps, and or remove a problematic monster from the graveyard before it can do something. Very cool, versatile card. We're glad to have it, but it's only at 1, so 1 is all we can play. And that is it for our spell lineup. Next up, we are talking about trap cards, and there are quite a few of them. Given that this is a Demise deck, we're going to mainly be relying on good trap cards to win the games for us. And of course, a lot of these trap cards are subjective to change based on whatever you're playing against in your area. Whatever trap cards are most powerful, you always need to be adjusting the ratios and which ones you're playing. These are the ones I'm currently playing to deal with the opponents that I play with in my dueling group. So starting off, we are playing our 1 copy of our key card, Skill Drain. Skill Drain is the namesake of the deck. It turns off all effects on the field, letting our monsters stay high attack power monsters. So we definitely want to see Skill Drain. I'd play 3 if it was possible, but it is limited, so we are only playing the 1 copy of Skill Drain currently. A very powerful card. It's I love Skill Drain, but I get why it's limited. It's not fun for a lot of people, and you'll frustrate a lot of people by flipping up Skill Drain. Not as powerful as Skill Drain, but Blazing Vortex did give us another tool, which is the reason I revived this deck in the form of Underdog. Now, Underdog is a fun little continuous trap that says, during your turn, negate the effects of face-up monsters your opponent controls, and then during your opponent's turn, negate the effects of face-up monsters you control. So this is a little bit of a weaker skill drain that still does what we need to do, because if we play Beast King Barbaros on our turn, and it's a 1900 attack monster, we can flip Underdog on our opponent's turn. It negates Barbaros' effect during their turn, and it'll be a 3000 attack monster after that. So, you know, we don't get it immediately on our turn like skill drain, making it a bit worse, but you know, it still gets the job done enough that I can play it, and it's fun to play in a casual setting. So 2 copies of Underdog. You know, if we don't have skill drain, we want to see this. And of course, that second effect can be pretty useful during your turn. Your opponent's face-up monsters don't have their effects live and activated. It does give us the ability to use Segmental Dragon's effect, which is a pretty cool perk. And of course, when we negate our opponent's effects during our turn, you know, that means we don't have to worry about their disruptions or their effects. Pretty cool. So not, you know, it's not skill drained, but it's a nice little substitute that makes this deck fun enough for me to want to play again. Next up, Macrocosmos. Just like Dimensional Fissure, this card makes it so that all cards that would be sent to the graveyard are banished instead. In a game that's so graveyard reliant, Macrocosmos is just a win con against many decks, and we're not necessarily punished by it since we're not doing graveyard effects or recursion. So we're glad to have Macrocosmos to win us some games. Next up, I am playing 2 copies of There Can Be Only One. A great floodgate trap card that makes it hard for a lot of decks to play. It makes it so that each player can only control 1 monster of each type on the field. So if a deck is monotype, you know, they're not going to be able to have multiple monsters. And in this deck, our monster lineup has a decent amount of type variety. I mean, Barbaros is a beast warrior, Fuziller Dragon is a machine, and Segmental Dragon is Cyburst. So, you know, that means we can get, you know, a Beast King and a Fuziller Dragon still on the field. And it's often worth the ability to just sometimes auto blow out decks by playing There Can Only Be One that, you know, it slows us from summoning a bunch of monsters. It also is a little way to commit, to help us from overcommitting when we literally cannot do so. But pretty good, blowout Floodgate. You know, definitely wins us some games, and I'll gladly take that. Next, playing 2 copies of Lost Wind. This allows us to target a face-up special summon monster on the field, negate its effects, and have its attack. Pretty powerful, and then when this card is in the graveyard, you know, we can set it back if your opponent special summons a monster. Pretty cool. You know, we could lose that to macro, but that's not a big idea. You know, if we need some attack having and negations right on the spot that skill drain is not covering, Lost Wind can do that job for us. Pretty powerful, little disruptive card with a recursion tool. Makes it pretty fun to have in trap card based decks. Next, I am playing 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. Very important card to have. We need this, you know, when you get Floodgates set up in a stun deck, your opponent is normally limited on the amount of outs possible. So having a way to say no to that specific out is very important. You know, we want to say no to Lightning Storm. We want to say no to Twin Twisters. All that kind of stuff that would destroy our Floodgates. We want to be able to do that. And of course, it can be used at a key time to stop a normal summon, leaving their field open for us to win on a previous turn. And that's definitely worth half our life points. Definitely want to see this card. 3 Solemn Judgment, very important. Next up, I am playing 3 Storming Mirror Force. Now this is for matchups before Skill Drain is alive. You know, they have monsters they want to attack. Or, you know, I can delay summoning my monster for a turn, have an open field, tempt them into attack, and just remove a bunch of monsters. Definitely a card that I switch the ratios around based on how things are performing. But having that non-targeting, non-destruction removal is a key thing to have. So having the option available is nice. You know, once you have big monsters on the field, you don't necessarily need it, but you can manipulate your field to tempt your opponent into attacking, and it is important when you don't have your floodgates up yet. Next, I am playing 2 copies of Heavy Storm Duster. You know, Heavy Storm Duster, it's a trap card that allows us to target 2 spell or trap cards on the field and destroy them in exchange for a battle phase. So it can be a +1 on card advantage. Using it during your opponent's turn makes us not lose out on the battle phase. And, you know, kind of our answer for dealing with more back row heavy decks as well. You know, we want to have the leg up on them. Heavy Storm Duster is a way to do that. You can consider playing 3 if you're going against even a higher spell trap card matchup, you know, out the gate. Next, I'm just playing some 1-for-1 removal. You know, things that I like, because once the stun is set up, you know, you normally just have to answer a monster per turn or so. We got 2 copies of Ring of Destruction, target a face-up monster, and then, of course, destroy it and inflict life point damage to both players equal to that monster's attack, as long as your opponent's life points is equal to or greater than that attack. You can use Ring of Destruction. So it destroys a monster, and the burn effect is actually pretty important. The burn effect will reduce opponent's life points, and you know playing this deck is a ticking. You know, you're on a clock here, so you want any extra burn damage you can pile on to end the game a little sooner. Definitely helps because you need to end the game really quick before your opponent can get an out set up. Next, 2 copies of Compulsory Evacuation Device. I have some matchups where this card does a lot of work. You know, if I don't have the floodgates and my opponent can make a monster, you know, compulsing a key piece at the right time can be pretty painful, especially if they're link climbing or something like that. So I keep 2 in the main for the matchup. All this is to be adjusted as needed. And then last, of course, I am playing 2 copies of Bottomless Trap Hole. You know, if the monster your opponent normal summons is 1500 or more, destroy it and banish it. Pretty good. You know, when you've got things locked down, they're normal summoning 1 monster. It's a way to remove it. Definitely comes in use in some of the matchups against what I play against. Always subject to change. So that is my current trap lineup for this deck. The trap lineup is always being adjusted, and which cards are being played are changed based on how my opponents are adapting and changing their decks and what they're playing. Very important thing to keep in mind when you're playing trap card based decks. But that is it for the main deck. Now, going into our extra deck, there's not too much to talk about here. We won't go into the extra deck a lot, given that it is a stun deck. The main one to talk about here is my 1 copy of Hope Harbinger. 2 Beast King Barbaros can make this, which is a card that, if Skill Drain's not up, you know, can allow us to negate a spell card if we don't have Skill Drain or Underdog up. You know, very small amount of usage, but it is possible to make this, so I figured I'd include it. Pretty good card. Also a decent card to summon off of a Waking the Dragon, which is a trap card I will often side or maybe slot into this deck in matchups where my opponents are destroying my spell and trap cards. Allows me to, you know, pull a Hope Harbinger off of it if I want to negate the spells. So definitely thought I should be playing the 1 Hope Harbinger. The rest of it is all in on the Waking the Dragon side deck. You know, if I want to side deck Waking the Dragon in, I can pull out all the great targets. You know, if you've seen my channel, you see this a lot. It comes in very, you know, it's a great card in my scene, so I definitely make full use of it. Starting with 3, Last Warrior from Another Planet. You know, if it's special summon, you destroy all monsters you control, but then neither player can summon monsters. So the only thing they can do is set monsters. If they don't have an out, Last Warrior can just win a game. Pretty awesome. In the right matchup, we'll go into Last Warrior. Next up are 2 copies of Naturia Exterio. This is to stomp out any deck that really needs its spell or trap cards to get going, because it allows us to negate the spell or trap cards pretty easily. And I have 1 copy of Naturia Beast just to fill the 3rd slot where Exterio would be, because Beast can do the same, but only for spells. Honestly, that's usually what you need it for. There's not too many other trap card based decks running rampant, but the flexibility and stronger body of Exterio makes it the better one to go into. It also costs less cards from the top of your deck in order to negate. But Naturia Beast is a fine substitute. I'll pick up a 3rd Exterio someday, and we will be all good there. Next, 3 copies of Blue Eyes Alternative Ultimate Dragon. Pretty good target to summon off Waking the Dragon. 4,500 attack monster that cannot be destroyed or targeted by card effects. That makes it pretty hard to deal with. 4,500 attack is really powerful too. Will do a lot of damage. And as an effect where instead of attacking, you can destroy a card in the field. Pretty important if you need to destroy a key card and can't do so by battle. So 4,500 attack monster that can't be destroyed by battle. That can't be destroyed or targeted with card effects is pretty good. Next up, running 3 copies of Yugioh Mathmech Final Sigma. If you special summon this card in the extra monster zone, it's unaffected by the effect of card effects other than Mathmech cards. Pretty cool. So 3,000 attack monster that you'll summon in an unaffected zone, and of course when it does battle with an opponent's monster and deals battle damage through that battle damage is doubled. So pretty nice, can get a lot of extra damage in. Good target to have. Next up, my 1 copy of Raid Raptor Ultimate Falcon. This is definitely the best of the unaffected by card effects, so if I had more copies I would be playing more of it. It's 3,500 attack monster, unaffected by card effects, and then of course that's mainly it. You'll never really use its effect, so that's the reason why we're playing Ultimate Falcon for that 3,500 attack, unaffected by card effects. Important to note for these unaffected by card effects is if you sided Waking the Dragon and it procced before your skill drain is active, or your Underdog is active, Skill Drain will not negate these effects if they're activated after these cards are on the field. Pretty awesome, and for that reason, if you really want to make use of that, you can play the Blackwing Full Armor Master over the alternative Ultimate Dragon. I'm actually looking into getting those myself, so that'll probably fill the slots where Raid Raptor Ultimate Falcon. And the last one is definitely a filler while I wait for more good Waking the Dragon targets to enter my collection. It's Simon, the Great Moral Leader. It's a 3,000 attack monster that is unaffected by monster effects. If it was the last good target for you to summon, it's there, it's available, still a decent effect, not as good as the others, but a good filler piece to have, and I get to say that I have Simon, the Great Moral Leader, in my extra deck, which is pretty cool. I think this is a fun looking card. So I'll gladly have it take my filler slot. And that is it for the extra deck. So that is it for the main deck profile. Before I go though, there's a couple cards that I've played with this deck on and off that I thought were worth showcasing and talking about. They're not in the main deck right now, but they have been historically, and they're definitely cards that I consider based on matchups. First thing I talked about is, of course, Waking the Dragon. As you've seen, my extra deck is Waking the Dragon based. If this set card in its owner's control has left the field because of an opponent's card effect and is now in the graveyard or banished, you can special summon a monster from your deck or extra deck. So you use this to get out all those powerful extra deck monsters I talked about, like Last Warrior, Ultimate Falcon, whichever ones you want to access. It's a pretty good card because in this kind of deck, your opponent is going to really want to take care of your back row because it's stunning them out of playing the game. And so if they wipe out everything at once, or if they blind pop some stuff to try to preemptively do it, they could hit Waking the Dragon and give you a huge payoff that might be a different alternate way that you win the game. Very cool card to have, definitely one worth considering. Next up, just kind of a fun card I've played sometimes in this. Crackdown is pretty interesting. If it can clog up your board slot for sure by being a continuous trap card, but if you've already got a lot of stun elements set up on the field, and your opponent is summoning a monster and sit on it, you can just crack down, take that monster, and open up their field for direct attacks from your really large attack power monsters like Barbaros, Fusiler, Segmental Dragon. And sometimes that's pretty nice. Definitely fun. The clogginess, though, definitely makes it so it usually does not enter, but I've tried it from time to time, and it's been fun. Next up, I just wanted to talk about two other floodgates you could run as alternative floodgates, or maybe you want to get rid of some of that one-on-one removal and do additional floodgating. Two that are, of course, extremely powerful floodgates in general. Good old anti-spell fragrance, which if you've already established your setup, you can flip anti-spell fragrance, and then both players must set spell cards before activation and cannot activate them until the next turn after they are set. So it turns spell cards into trap cards, except even longer if they're not quick play. So, if there's key spell cards your opponent is playing, that gets things moving. If you've already gotten off your demise, already got your full trap board, most of your cards are trap cards anyway, anti-spell fragrance is certainly probably more punishing to a lot of opponents than it is to you, and can be very nasty to deal with. I mean, pendulum decks can't even play if you go up against a pendulum deck, but definitely worth considering. And then, of course, next, I want to talk about Summon Limit. Summon Limit is a pretty good continuous trap that says neither player can summon more than 2 times per turn. Now, this is summoned through any manner, normal summon or special summon. You certainly will not be doing that in your deck. So giving this to your opponent even hinders them further. Especially if you flip it at the right time after they've summoned 2 monsters, maybe before they were going to go into an extra deck monster. You hit them with Summon Limit, then their turn is done, their monsters are in attack. In general, it limits how many monsters they can summon so that they can't wall up too much. So Summon Limit is definitely an excellent card to have in addition. And those are just 4 cards that weren't showcased in the main deck, but sometimes they make it into my builds of this deck, and enough so that I thought they were worth talking about. But anyway, that is it for my Skill Drain Beatdown deck profile. Hope you enjoyed. Like I said, this is a historical favorite of mine. Been a long time fan of just normal summoning these big dumb monsters and having them keep their ridiculous attack. And even with Skill Drain Limited, Blazing Vortex at least gives me copies of Underdog to be able to play this deck in a fun setting, and that is good enough for me. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you like Skill Drain. I'd be glad to gush about it in the comments below. But until then, I will catch you all next time.